They were born as one, but fate tore them apart. After a tragic accident, one twin was mourned while the other grew up believing she was alone in the world. Years later, destiny brings her face to face with a life she was never meant to live, the children she never gave birth to, and the man who once loved her sister. This is not a story about replacing the dead. It's a story about love, loss, and two broken souls finding wholeness where pain once lived. If this story moves you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. 5-year-old Monica Harrison opened her eyes to darkness. Mommy? And beside Monica, strapped in her car seat, was her twin sister Melody, crying hysterically. Melody! Monica reached out, but her arm wouldn't move right. Pain shot through her shoulder. The car had crashed through a guardrail and tumbled down an embankment, finally coming to rest against a massive oak tree. The back door on Melody's side had been ripped clean off during the roll, hanging by a single hinge. Melody's crying grew louder, more desperate. Her tiny fingers fumbled with the car seat buckle until suddenly it clicked open. She tumbled out of the wreckage and onto the forest floor, her white dress torn and dirty. Melody, don't go. Monica tried to scream, but the world was spinning. Don't leave me. But Melody, disoriented and terrified, stumbled into the woods, her cries echoing between the trees until they faded into nothing. Monica's vision blurred. The last thing she remembered was the sound of sirens in the distance, and then everything went black. 3 miles away, deep in the forest, an elderly woman named Rose was collecting firewood when she heard it. A child's cry, weak and broken. Her heart clenched. In her 72 years, living alone in her cottage at the edge of nowhere, she'd never heard anything so heartbreaking. She followed the sound through the underbrush until she found her, a little girl in a torn white dress, covered in scratches and dirt, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "Oh, sweet child," Rose whispered, kneeling beside her. "What happened to you?" The girl looked up with tear-filled eyes, but said nothing. She was trembling violently in shock. Rose wrapped her shawl around the tiny shoulders and lifted her gently. "It's all right now. You're safe. I've got you." She carried the child back to her cottage, her mind racing. Should she call the authorities? But the nearest town was miles away, and she had no phone. By the time she could get help, it would be morning. The child needed warmth, food, and comfort now. Rose cleaned the girl's wounds, dressed her in warm clothes, and fed her soup. But the child wouldn't speak, wouldn't tell her name, wouldn't say where she came from. "Can you tell me your name, sweetheart?" Rose asked gently. The girl just stared, her eyes empty with trauma. Days passed. Rose waited for news of a missing child, but none came. The child slowly began to respond, to eat, to sleep without nightmares. But she remembered nothing before the woods. The accident had stolen her memory. "I'll call you Melody," Rose finally said, stroking the girl's hair, "because your voice will bring music back into my life." The child smiled for the first time. "Melody," she repeated softly. Rose's eyes filled with tears. She had always wanted a child, but never married, never had the chance. Perhaps God had brought this little one to her for a reason. "Yes, my darling, you're my Melody now." 6 months later, Monica Harrison opened her eyes in a sterile hospital room. The machines around her beeped steadily. Her mother sat in a chair beside her, asleep, her head wrapped in bandages. Her father stood by the window, staring out at nothing. "Daddy?" Monica's voice was hoarse. Her father spun around, his face crumbling with emotion. "Monica! Oh, God, Monica!" He rushed to her side, tears streaming down his face. "You're awake. You're finally awake. Where's Melody?" Monica asked, her memory foggy but insistent. "Where's my sister?" The room went silent. Her father's face turned gray. Her mother woke with a start, saw Monica conscious, and immediately burst into tears. "What's wrong? Where is she?" Monica's voice rose with panic. Her father took her hand, his own shaking. "Monica, sweetheart, Melody didn't make it. She died in the accident." "No!" Monica screamed. "No!" She was crying. "She was right next to me. She got out." They searched everywhere, baby, her mother sobbed. They found nothing. The police said, they said the forest animals. That's why they couldn't find her body. Monica screamed until her throat was raw. Screamed until the nurses came running with sedatives. Screamed until the world went dark again. They held a memorial service without a body. White roses everywhere. Monica stood in her black dress, staring at a photo of her and Melody on their 5th birthday, just weeks before the accident. They were identical, down to the gap in their front teeth and the small mole on their left wrists. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," Monica whispered to the photograph. "I'm so sorry." 20 years passed like a slow-moving river, carving out entirely different lives for the two girls who should have grown up together. Monica Harrison became everything her wealthy parents dreamed of. Yale graduate, fluent in 3 languages, board member of her father's real estate empire. Beautiful, poised, and successful, but there was always something missing. A hollow space in her chest that nothing could fill. She would sometimes wake in the middle of the night, certain she'd heard someone calling her name. In crowds, she'd turn suddenly, convinced she'd seen someone familiar. The ghost of her twin haunted her in ways she could never explain to anyone. Melody, meanwhile, grew up in Rose's tiny cottage, learning to plant vegetables, bake bread, and find joy in simple things. Rose homeschooled her, teaching her to read from old books and find beauty in nature. They were poor but rich in love. "Grandma Rose, why don't I have a real family?" Melody asked one day when she was 15. Rose's hands trembled as she braided Melody's hair. "You have me, child. Aren't I real enough? You know what I mean. Where did I come from?" Rose pulled her close. "The forest gave you to me. That's all that matters. You're the daughter of my heart, even if not of my body." Melody never pushed further. Rose was everything to her. Mother, grandmother, best friend. What more could she ask for? At 25, Monica attended a charity gala at the plaza. She hated these events, but attended for her father's sake. She was standing by the bar, nursing champagne she didn't want, when she saw him. Charles Montgomery, architect, 32, devastatingly handsome with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He was studying the building's architecture, seemingly oblivious to the party around him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Monica said, approaching him. "The crown molding is original, from 1907. Charles turned and their eyes met. Something electric passed between them. "You know your architecture," he said, smiling. "My father's in real estate. I grew up studying buildings. And I grew up drawing them." Charles Montgomery. He extended his hand. Monica Harrison. They talked for 3 hours straight, about buildings and dreams and the strange loneliness of crowded rooms. By the end of the night, Charles knew he'd met someone extraordinary. "Can I see you again?" he asked as the party wound down. Monica smiled, and for the first time in years, the hollow space in her chest felt a little smaller. "I'd like that." Their courtship was a whirlwind. Dinners that turned into sunrise walks. Weekend trips to examine historic buildings. Nights spent talking about everything and nothing. Charles was patient with her silences, never pushing when she grew distant. "Sometimes I feel incomplete," Monica confessed one night, lying in his arms. "Like half of me is missing." "You're a twin," Charles said softly. She'd told him about Melody. "Yes, it sounds crazy, but sometimes I swear I can feel her, like she's still out there somewhere." Charles kissed her forehead. "That's not crazy. That's love. Love doesn't die just because someone does." 6 months later, he proposed on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. Monica said yes through happy tears. Their wedding was elegant and grand, but Monica felt her sister's absence like a physical pain. She'd ordered 2 bouquets, leaving one at the memorial stone that bore Melody's name. "I wish you were here," she whispered to the photograph she carried. "You should be my maid of honor." A year into their marriage, Monica discovered she was pregnant, with twins. "Twins!" she cried, clutching the ultrasound image. "Charles, we're having twins." He lifted her and spun her around, laughing. "Twins. My God, Monica, that's incredible." But the joy was short-lived. The pregnancy was complicated from the start. Monica's blood pressure skyrocketed. The babies were in distress. At 34 weeks, her doctor made the call. We need to deliver now. Emergency C-section. Charles held Monica's hand in the pre-op room, his face pale with fear. I'm scared, Monica whispered. You're the strongest person I know. You and our boys are going to be fine. Promise me something, she said, gripping his hand tighter. If something happens to me, tell them about Melody. Tell them they have an aunt who would have loved them. Promise me they'll know they're not the only twins in this family. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me, Charles. I promise. They wheeled her into surgery. Charles waited in a room that felt like it was closing in on him. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. Finally, a doctor emerged, pulling off his surgical mask. His expression made Charles's blood run cold. Mr. Montgomery, your sons are healthy. 2 beautiful boys. But your wife, she hemorrhaged during delivery. We did everything we could. I'm so sorry. The words didn't make sense. Charles shook his head. No, she's strong. She's going to be fine. I'm very sorry for your loss. Charles's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, the world tilting on its axis. Monica was gone. The woman he loved more than life itself was gone, leaving him with 2 newborn sons and a grief so profound he couldn't breathe. At the funeral, Charles stood between 2 tiny bassinets, his sons sleeping peacefully, unaware their mother was gone. Monica's parents were destroyed, having now lost both their daughters. The grief was unbearable. I don't know how to do this without you, Charles whispered, touching Monica's casket. I don't know how to be enough for them. 2 years crawled by. Charles threw himself into fatherhood, learning to be both mother and father to his twin boys, James and Julian. He was exhausted, grieving, and lonely, but he kept going. For them. Always for them. One Saturday afternoon, he took the boys to the park. They were running around a playground, their laughter the only thing that made life bearable anymore. James tripped and fell. Scraping his knee, he started crying, and Charles rushed over. I've got him. Charles looked up and froze. Standing beside him was a woman reaching for his son. A woman with Monica's face. Monica's eyes. Monica's smile. What? Charles couldn't form words. The woman looked up at him, and her expression mirrored his shock. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. I... Charles couldn't stop staring. She cleaned James's knee with a wipe from her bag, speaking softly to him. There you go. Brave boy. All better. James looked at her with wide eyes. You look like the picture of my mommy. The woman's smile faltered. That's a very sweet thing to say. Charles finally found his voice. I'm sorry for staring. It's just, you look exactly like someone I knew. My late wife. The woman's expression softened with sympathy. I'm so sorry for your loss. People say everyone has a twin somewhere in the world. Maybe I'm hers. Maybe, Charles whispered, but something in his gut told him this was more than coincidence. I'm Melody, she said, extending her hand. I teach kindergarten nearby. Charles felt like he'd been punched in the chest. Melody? Yes. Is something wrong? No, I'm Charles. Charles Montgomery. These are my sons, James and Julian. Beautiful names. And beautiful boys. She smiled at the twins, who were now both staring at her with fascination. Are you our new mommy? Julian asked innocently. Julian. Charles's face flushed. But Melody just laughed softly, though there was sadness in her eyes. No, sweetheart. I'm just a teacher who happened to be walking by. They talked for a few more minutes. The conversation stilted and strange, both of them unsettled by the impossible resemblance. When Melody finally excused herself, Charles watched her walk away, his mind racing. That night, he pulled out his laptop and searched for answers. He found old news articles about the Harrison accident, about the missing twin who was presumed dead. Melody Harrison, he read aloud, 5 years old, never found, presumed deceased. He looked at the age-progressed photo the police had created years ago, showing what Melody might look like at 25. It was her. The woman from the park. It was identical. Charles's hand shook as he reached for his phone. He called Monica's mother. Elizabeth, I need to ask you something. Did Monica have any birthmarks? Anything distinctive? Why are you asking this, Charles? Please, it's important. She had a small mole on her left wrist. So did Melody. It was one of the few ways we could tell them apart when they were babies. Charles closed his eyes. Thank you. He had to find Melody again. He had to know. Meanwhile, across town, Melody sat beside Rose's bed in the tiny cottage. Rose had fallen ill, her body finally giving out after decades of hard work and simple living. Grandma Rose, please hold on, Melody whispered, holding the frail hand. Rose's eyes fluttered open. My sweet girl, I need to tell you something, before it's too late. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. No, child, my time has come. But you need to know the truth. What truth? Rose's breathing was labored. I found you in the woods. 20 years ago, after an accident, you were wearing this. She pressed something into Melody's hand. Melody looked down. It was a small silver locket, tarnished with age. Open it, Rose whispered. With trembling fingers, Melody pried it open. Inside was a tiny photograph of two identical little girls and an engraving. Monica and Melody Harrison, forever together. Melody's breath caught. What does this mean? It means you had a family, my darling. A family who lost you. I should have looked harder, tried harder to find them. But I was selfish. I wanted a child so badly. Forgive me. Grandma Rose, no. You saved me. You gave me everything. Find them. Rose breathed. Find your family. Don't make my mistakes. I won't leave you. You're not leaving me. You're finding yourself. Rose smiled weakly. You've been the daughter I never had, the joy of my life. But now it's time for you to discover who you really are. Rose died that night, peacefully, with Melody holding her hand. Melody buried her grandmother in the small cemetery on the edge of town, her heart shattered. She was truly alone now, but she had the locket, and she had questions that demanded answers. She hired a private investigator with the little money Rose had left her. Within a week, he called with news. I found them. The Harrisons. Your family. They're in New York City. But Melody, there's something you need to know. Your twin sister, Monica, she died 2 years ago, during childbirth. Melody's world tilted. I had a sister? A twin sister. Identical. She married a man named Charles Montgomery. She left behind twin sons. Charles, the man from the park. The boys who looked at her with Monica's eyes. Everything fell into place with devastating clarity. Melody showed up at Charles's apartment 3 days later, trembling. She rang the bell, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Charles opened the door, and his face went white. You came. You knew, Melody said. You figured it out. Yes, I've been looking for you. I went to park every day, hoping you'd come back. He stepped aside. Please, come in. They sat in his living room, the twin boys playing with blocks in the corner, casting curious glances at the stranger who looked so much like the photograph of their mother. I don't even know where to start, Melody said, clutching the locket. Start with the truth. You're Monica's twin sister. You're Melody Harrison. I think I am, but I don't remember. The woman who raised me, Rose, she found me in the woods. I have no memories before that. Charles showed her the newspaper articles, the police reports, the age-progressed photos. The evidence was overwhelming. Your parents are still alive, Charles said gently. They live on the Upper East Side. They mourned you for 20 years. Melody's eyes filled with tears. I had a family, a real family, and a sister, a twin sister who I'll never meet. But you can meet your parents and your nephews. Monica would have wanted that. How can you be so sure? Charles pulled out his phone and played a video. Monica, heavily pregnant, sitting in their living room. Charles, if I don't make it. Monica's voice came through the speaker. Don't say that. Charles's voice responded from behind the camera. Let me finish. If I don't make it, and if by some miracle Melody is still alive somewhere, find her. Tell her I never stopped loving her. Tell her she's not alone. Tell her to live the life I couldn't give her. The video ended. Melody was sobbing, her whole body shaking. She knew, Melody whispered. Somehow she knew. Twins have connection, Charles said softly. Maybe she felt you all along. The meeting with the Harrisons was arranged for the following week. Melody stood outside their mansion, terrified. I can't do this, she said to Charles, who had insisted on coming with her. Yes, you can. They've waited 20 years for this moment. The door opened. Elizabeth Harrison stood there, and the moment she saw Melody, she collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Oh my God, it's really you. Melody, my baby girl. Richard Harrison appeared behind his wife, his face crumbling. We looked everywhere. We never stopped looking. Melody fell into their arms, and they all cried together. 20 years of grief and loss and missed time pouring out in that embrace. Over the following months, Melody learned about her past, about the privileged life she would have led, about the sister who had mourned her every day, about the family who never gave up hope. But she also shared her life with Rose, the simple joys, the lessons learned, the unconditional love. She saved me, Melody told her parents. In every way a person can be saved. I know you're angry she didn't come forward, but please don't be. She gave me a beautiful life. Elizabeth wiped her tears. Then we're grateful to her for keeping you safe, for loving you when we couldn't. Charles watched from the doorway as Melody bonded with her nephews. They adored her instantly, calling her Aunt Melody, asking her to read stories and play games. One evening, after the boys were asleep, Charles and Melody sat on the porch, watching the stars. This is strange, Melody said. Being here, with you, with them. It's strange to me, too, Charles admitted. You look so much like her. But you're not her. You're different. Softer, more gentle. Monica was strong. I read about her accomplishments. She was incredible. But you're incredible, too, in different ways. They fell silent, the air thick with unspoken things. Melody, I need to tell you something, Charles said, his voice shaking. And after I say it, if you want to leave, I'll understand. I'll never bother you again. Melody's heart hammered in her chest. What is it? I'm falling in love with you. The words tumbled out desperately. I know it's wrong. I know it's too soon. I know you probably think I'm just looking for a replacement for Monica, but I swear it's not that. You're different. You laugh differently. You see the world differently. When you're with the boys, when you talk about Rose, when you smile, I see someone entirely new. Someone I want to know forever. Melody stood abruptly, walking to the edge of the porch, her back to him. Charles felt his heart sinking. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I shouldn't have said anything. Please forget I... No. Melody's voice was barely a whisper. She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. I came here to meet my family, to learn about my past, to know my sister. She wiped her eyes roughly. I never expected to feel this way, and it terrifies me. Feel what way? Like I'm betraying her. Melody's voice broke, like I'm stealing her life. Her husband, her children, her parents, everything that should have been hers is becoming mine. How can I allow myself to love you when she died giving birth to your sons, when she never got to see them grow up? Charles stood and walked to her. Monica is gone, and that destroys me every single day. But Melody, she wouldn't want us to stop living. She wouldn't want you to sacrifice your happiness for her memory. How do you know that? Melody challenged. How can you be sure? Charles hesitated, then pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. Because she told me, 3 days before she died. He played a video. Monica, heavily pregnant, sitting in their living room, looking directly into the camera. Charles, there's one more thing. If Melody is alive, and if you find her, and if you fall in love with her, don't feel guilty. Don't let her feel guilty. She's my twin. She's my other half. Loving her would be like finding the piece of me that was lost. Promise me you'll open your heart. Promise me you'll let her in. Because if fate brings you two together, it's not betrayal. It's completion. The video ended. Melody collapsed onto the porch steps, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. She knew. Melody gasped between sobs. How did she know? Charles sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. Twins. You were connected even when you were apart. I feel like I'm going crazy, Melody whispered against his chest. I miss her and I never even knew her. I love you, and I feel like I'm not allowed to. I want this life, but it was supposed to be hers. Then live it for both of you, Charles said softly. Love these boys for both of you. Build this future for both of you. She's not here to do it, but you are. And Melody, he lifted her chin gently. I don't love you because you look like her. I love you because you're brave enough to love when it hurts. Because you honor Rose's memory while embracing your past. Because you read the boys' silly voices and make them giggle. Because you're you. Melody looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. I'm scared. Me too. What if I can never be enough? You already are. She leaned her forehead against his. Then yes, I love you too. Even though it terrifies me. Even though I don't understand it. Yes. They sat there on the porch until dawn, holding each other, crying together, healing together. Two broken people finding wholeness in the strangest of places. This story is about love, loss, and the paths fate never lets us choose. If any part of it touched your heart, please red heart, like the video, subscribe for more emotional stories, and share your thoughts below. Backhand index pointing down, I'd love to know. Do you believe fate can reunite what was once torn apart? Thank you for watching and being part of this journey.